Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Today we're going to be talking about switch statements. Now in our previous video we've covered different types of conditional statements such as if, else and else if. Now the reason why I'm introducing you to a switch statement is because it's an alternative way to program rather than using multiple if statements or multiple if else statements or using multiple else if statements. So if you have a quick look at this, you can see this is our program that we created in our previous video. It checks for 3 different users and then it provides a message if none of the people's names are met. So we're going to start off by creating our new file and we're going to call it switch.js. We're going to go through the same example we had in our previous video, but this time we're going to create a switch statement. So it's going to be using the exact same values and variables. So we're going to use Ryan, Chris, Amy and Chloe, but we're going to show you how to do it using a switch statement. So to do this, we're going to start off with declaring our variable name like we have done in our previous video. So we're going to say var name and we're just going to set it to Ryan initially. So equals and Ryan. Now what we want to do is we're going to use the switch keyword. Now you're familiar with the if keyword, the else keyword and the else if keyword. So this is just another keyword that we can use in JavaScript. After our switch keyword, we're going to place 2 round brackets and we're going to put whatever we want to check. So for this example, we want to check our name. So we're just going to put our name variable inside our switch statement and then we're going to open up our switch statement similar to how we would open up an if statement or an else statement. So we can do this by doing 2 curly brackets. And I'm going to bring that second curly bracket down to the next line. And what we're going to do now is we want to check to see what our name is. And we're going to check a couple of different inputs. So if we go back to our previous video and our previous file, we can see that we checked for Ryan first, then we checked for Chris, and then we checked for Amy, and Chloe was a default. So Chloe wasn't actually checked, so if we put in our name as Chloe or we put in our name as James or any other name, we would get this standard message which is I don't know you. So we're going to be doing something similar with our switch statement. So we want to check to see if our name is Ryan, and how we do this is we say case, and after our case we put in whatever value we want to check. So we want to check to see is the name variable, which we've declared inside our switch statement, we want to see is that in fact Ryan. So we can check that by putting in the string Ryan, and after Ryan we're going to put a colon. Now not a semicolon, a colon, and you'll be able to find the colon. It's just to the right of the L letter on your keyboard. But if you just hit that, you'll get a semicolon, which will look like this. I know there's a very slight difference, but your computer won't work if you use a semicolon. So you have to just use a normal colon. And how you do this is you hold down the shift button and then you press that semicolon and it'll give you one that looks like this. You'll notice a colon is just like 2 dots, while a semicolon is like a dot and a comma. It looks like this. You can see that it's a dot and comma. Now, if our name is Ryan, we want to do something, okay? So we're going to move down to the next line and we're going to console log hello Ryan. So we can now see if our name is Ryan, hello Ryan should be displayed. So we're going to run this and see what we get. And we can see we get our output as hello Ryan. Now we want to do some other checks. So we want to check for the name Chris and we want to check for Amy. And we're going to use Chloe as our default value. But we could use anything that's not included in these 3 examples. So we're going to move on to our next line and we're going to just go in one and we're going to say case again. So case is just like checking for a value. It's like using an if statement, but it's much easier to write. It requires less code. So we're going to say case and now we're going to put in Chris. And after we have put in our variable Chris or our string Chris, we want to put in a colon. So after we've put in our string Chris, we want to put in a colon. and then we move on to the next line. This next line will be what's executed when Chris is the name variable. So again, we just want to console log hello Chris. So now that we've got this, we want to do a third check, which will be a third case statement, and our value will be Amy. We want to check to see if our variable is Amy. So we're going to go to the next line again, like we've done with all our other examples, and we're going to console log hello Amy. And you can see that I've forgotten my colon here, so it's very easy to forget these little things. So make sure you have a colon after all your different statements that you're checking. Now let's assume we run this program now. So let's run it again, and we can see hello Ryan, hello Chris, hello Amy. So this doesn't make much sense because our name is Ryan, so it says hello Ryan to us, and then it says hello Chris, and then it has hello Amy, which doesn't look good. So what we can actually do is we can put a break statement in here. So if our value is Ryan, it'll go in here, it'll console log hello Ryan, and then it'll break out, so it won't bother performing any of these other checks. So we're going to go and run this again, and if we run this again, we can see hello Ryan. And imagine we were to change our name from Ryan to maybe Chris. What would happen now is Ryan would no longer be true, so hello Ryan would not run, and then we would check for Chris here, and hello Chris would run, but then Amy would also run. So let's just run this and I'll show you what happens. And you can see we get hello Chris and hello Amy. So again, we want to put a break statement on the following line for Chris, so we want to say break, and we'll do the same for Amy. So now if we go and run this program again, we can see that hello Chris is displayed when Chris is the value. We can see Ryan was displayed when Ryan was the value, and we'll put in Amy. We just test Amy, and we can see hello Amy. But imagine if we put in something like Chloe. So we could put in Chloe, and if we go and run this, we can see that we get nothing as our output, which is exactly how we've programmed our solution, because we've checked for Ryan, we've checked for Chris, we've checked for Amy, but we've no else statement. Like here, if none of these were true, we printed out I don't know you. So with a switch statement, we can do something similar, but it's not called a case, we'd call this a default. So we just use the default keyword followed by a colon, and then on the next line we will do whatever we want to do when Amy or Chris or Ryan is not the value. So I'm just going to print out the same thing that we done for our previous program, I don't know you. So now if we go and run this using the variable Chloe, we'll see that we get I don't know you. And if we were to put in maybe a different name here, maybe we were to put in James, let's say, and we want to go and run this. So using a switch statement over an if-else statement can be really useful if you've got multiple inputs. Rather than having to check them all using loads and loads of if-else statements, you can use a switch statement instead.